whose words are true, as God is my witness. It is done.
Military victory, thank God it's over.
Total War Attila is one of the most divisive titles in the entire Total War franchise, with many players quick to defend its praise, and even more quick to tear it to pieces. Due to the endless content that the Warhammer titles keep bringing us, I haven't touched either title in over 5 years, and I decided to conduct an experiment. I played Total War Attila as the Eastern Roman Empire, and then, after completing that campaign, I played Rome 2 as, well, Rome, both on Legendary difficulty, both without mods to keep things fair. Quick disclaimer, I'm not trying to crap on Attila because I really want to like this game, but honestly I find myself keen to play it between sessions, but as soon as I start getting in depth in a session I remember all the baggage that it comes with. After finishing Attila and going back to Rome 2, I rediscovered just how fun a historical title can be. What I found was Rome 2 was quite simply just a more simple and enjoyable game without the grindy repetition and tedium that Attila brought to the picture. While I would really like to look forward to Attila, due to being a massive fan of that time period, I played it and honestly found it such a slog, and I can usually enjoy the vanilla games without too much tweaking. But I am starting to believe that Total War Attila not only is better with mods, but actually needs mods in order to make it enjoyable. Even with the remake of Rome 1 out, it's still hitting around 60% of Attila's players, whilst Rome 2 is 2 to 3 times the number of online players as Total War Attila. So, just following these numbers, there is possibly some correlation. Now, I come from the camp where I think that a lot of players really overdo mods, and we've almost conditioned ourselves to think that we just can't go vanilla. I really enjoy overhaul mods that completely change the game and the UI, but I try to avoid ones that basically cheat or take away some of the gameplay strategy and mechanics because I prefer to overcome the challenge. But if I like challenge, why don't I like Attila? So, to work this out, my next step was I started a brand new campaign as the Eastern Roman Empire on Legendary again, but I applied these 10 mods, and what I found was an easier campaign, albeit, but it was still harder than any other Total War game that I've played. I believe this is the perfect combination of mods for a brand new player wanting to experience Attila and have a fun experience while doing so. I've found the biggest issue of Total War Attila is the new mechanics it brings in require a lot of time and administration but give very little payoff to the player, and more so punish them for making the slightest mistake. The first 5 I'm going to rush through are 5 user interface mods before going through the 5 gameplay mods that will highlight and hopefully fix some of the major issues of the grand campaign. Starting with the 5 essential UI mods, the Olympian Campaign Camera. You'll find that as your empire expands, the too close to the floor camera doesn't quite cut it. Being able to zoom further out and assess your empire from a grander point of view has a lot of strategic benefit. Now, I've done 1A but also 1B as an add-on to this particular mod. Please also consider exploring the no arcade effects. Get some files downloaded and place them in your directory to override it. This will eliminate the clouds which obscure your vision on the campaign map. The second mod is the Olympian Battle Camera. Quite similarly, it allows you to zoom in further as well as zoom out further. Fantastic tool for people that are new to the franchise. Mods number 3 and mod number 4 both enhance the appearance of the campaign map. Number 3 improves the campaign lighting to give a darker, grittier feel, which I think is beautiful, and the bolder campaign borders is also amazing, and you can actually see where the territories start and end. Lastly, more detailed unit stats allows you to see the additional bonuses to cavalry or infantry. Just a nice thing to have. Now to look at the top 5 mods that will impact gameplay. Starting off with only Nomads Raise. One of my biggest criticisms of this game is every AI decides to raise everything. From civil wars, revolts, passing by nomads, there seems to be at least a 50% chance that they'll just raise the settlement to the ground, all so they can have their big empty apocalyptic battlefield in the middle of the map been burnt and turned to chaos. I get that that's what they want, but it is boring. You honestly feel like you are the only civilization that has any interest at all in building. It's like you're going to the beach and there's 10 teenagers behind you ready to knock down your sandcastle the moment you start building, and then you build it again, then they knock it down again. Yes, it's challenging, but it's repetitive and there's only one strategy to counter it, meaning it lacks depth. And Rome 2, one of its best parts is there are so many different cultures to interact with. All you end up doing is chasing individual stacks of nomads into this abyss where there's no other settlements or factions, or you simply wait for them. Also, because of the flimsy public order issues, which I will speak about later, you'll end up raising settlements just to avoid revolts, and you end up contributing to the boring map that is the Grand Campaign. You can't build garrisons typically, and also minor settlements need to be level 4 in order to get walls. This costs around 17,000 talents and takes 23 turns to build. Now keep in mind that nomads will still raise. They do what nomads do, but the sedentary powers, they'll still be able to take over cities and they'll be inclined to do so, just like they really would. Now the only thing that's slightly distasteful about this mod is that you will find yourself raising things if you are a sedentary power. Now this is a bit irky for me because you're doing something that the AI cannot do. However, you can try to do it without having to raise settlements to the ground, but in this game, boy is it tricky. Mod number 2, region trading. There is only one way to play Total War Attila, slow and defensive, and we'll get to that in a minute. But diplomacy only really serves to pay for peace and join wars while you build your defenses. Expansion is risky, and a lack of an ability to help an ally complete their territory is actually more of a chore than anything else. You end up raising things just because you can't hold it, and fighting that revolt is something you really can't spare. The bonuses and negatives you get from not having an entire region under your control are immense, and region trading allows you to complete an ally's province and give it to them. Yes, you can abandon settlements, but that results in even more public order issues, which we will get to now. Mod number 3, more public order. My only criticism that I commonly see about Warhammer's building is that it's just too simplistic, which I think is a fair criticism, but having all these different buildings in Total War Attila does not mean a thing if you spam the same 5 buildings in every single province. I would actually go as far to say that building system is an actual issue, not because of the structures, but because of the public order and sanitation mechanics that govern it, necessitating every single province to look the same just to function. For example, in Total War Attila, you pretty much only build 5 variants of building anyway. It's just a layer of grind to sift through the useless buildings to find the only 5 you'll ever use. Well, let's say, you're on top of a salt mine, so you'd build a resource building. You might build farms and ports because you need food. You could even also build a food emporium inside that category. Well, now we have sanitation, so we need aqueducts and thermae, and public order is always an issue, so you need a governor's building too. So that's already 5 different building types that we require before we can do anything else. Rome 2's building system is fine, but Attila takes this 2 steps forward, 1 step back system just to a whole new level. I truly feel the sanitation mechanic is the straw that breaks the camel's back here. Having to spare precious build slots to reduce squalor is just something that reduces the flexibility of city building. I mean, seriously, you're the emperor, why can't they combine the cost of aqueducts in the city expansion? Regardless, I can still live with sanitation. So that's why instead I chose to target public order with this particular mod. Public order has a laundry list of ways it can go down, but really only buildings can bring it back up. The Western Roman Empire campaign is essentially a revolt simulator, but it's meant to be hard. That's okay, but there is so much work to be done just to avoid the negative modifiers, and as soon as you get hit by some of them, they snowball and nothing good ever feels permanent. As previously established, buildings take forever to build, but if you get besieged by an enemy just for one turn, you will take damaged buildings and then a subsequent devastation penalty. Because you're so poor, you can't afford to repair it, so you'll be taking that devastation penalty for as many turns as it takes. Also, if you abandon or raise nearby settlements, you take an immigration penalty. All of this is to give nomadic factions an edge so the map becomes a wasteland in the middle ground. Age of Charlemagne goes a long way to fixing this and is more enjoyable because of it. The bottom line is that public order and sanitation dictate so much that there's no flexibility, and the aforementioned public order mod can really assist here. It scales with difficulty, reducing as you go harder, up until only a minimum of +5 on legendary difficulty. This isn't going to be hugely game breaking, but it might mean you have 1 or 2 less revolts to have to contend with per turn, which is basically a way of speeding up the game. Now, this is probably the most controversial mod so far on the list. I normally steer far clear of any mod that impacts challenge. This is just how I like to play. Many people like to play differently, and I try to acknowledge that. Number 4. Religion Rework. Religious differences in Total War Attila just never seem to settle down. Now, I understand quite realistically that someone's faith is very difficult to change. But even with priests inside a province, you almost give up and just accept the religious differences penalty. Certain buildings promoting paganism is just a bit absurd, and churches are far overcosted and under-deliver in terms of public order bonuses. Having an amphitheatre increasing paganism? I just can't picture Christian migrants coming in saying, "Nah, sorry mate, I can't sit down there, I'll worship the devil." It's a bit absurd, a long stretch, and it would be nice to see religions do a bit more. Enter the Religion Rework. This is a somewhat balanced mod because every single faction has its own religion, so therefore will gain some of these bonuses, but it just adds a bit more depth and is quite enjoyable as a consequence. For the Romans, being able to get a public order kicker, that's really nice. Speaking of the Romans, there are also Latin and Greek Christianity building reworks which reduce the cost to these buildings. A common criticism for the Christianity in this game is that it is just so expensive, and pretty much anything that seems easy seems to attract Greco-Roman paganism. I personally stuck with Christianity and I did okay. Some people, it just really irks them and they'd like to play Christianity, yet they find it too challenging. I haven't tried these mods myself, but I saw them on the workshop. Please comment if you do use them and you find them useful. Finally, the character system. Integrity and loyalty are, let's face it, they are a chore, and I don't really think too many people enjoy using these. The officers should be a fun little mechanic, but again, Total War Attila takes it too far of micromanagement by having to double check who's been promoted where and who will get offended if you promote them over someone else. That's right, you will get a loyalty penalty, and without realizing it, if you haven't checked who's worked which office, you can decide to get someone to start a civil war on you. Good times, if there wasn't enough revolts in this game. What's worst is that civil wars also come with much worse public order penalties throughout your entire empire. This particular mod means that you don't have to look at who you promote to which position in your council. Simply find someone who's qualified for a position and put them in there. This is pretty much a straight up cheat, but I really don't find any enjoyment in having to flick through nameless characters. Also, just a quick note that Age of Charlemagne, to quite a high degree, fixes some of these issues that were present in the Grand Campaign. And that completes my list of the top 10 mods for a player to use on the Total War Attila Grand Campaign to hopefully make it a bit more fun. My name's been Ryder, and thank you for watching Elven Plot Armor. If you wouldn't mind giving me a like or a subscribe if you have enjoyed this video, I would be very grateful for it. Thank you very much.